Assalamu alaikum, welcome to another episode of the Middle West podcast. This is a special edition of the episode. We're recording with a guest who's based in Idlib on the ground. So I'm joined by my co-host Asad Hussein.
Assalamu alaikum.
And guest host Mustafa Dabbagh.
Assalamu
alaikum. And we're joined by Noor Qurmush, who works with Rahma Worldwide. And he's in Idlib on the ground. Assalamu alaikum, Noor. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
Firstly, it's a little bit surreal from our side because we're sitting in a very kind of quiet countryside place, and I understand that there's a ceasefire right now. So we're recording on the 7th of March. So there's a ceasefire today. So is there any kind of violence, etc., happening around you, or?
Well, first of all, the ceasefire didn't affect anything on the humanitarian situation on the ground. There are still a lot of people are suffering from these latest attacks. Right now, the latest statistics shown that more than 1.7 million internal displaced people from areas of rural Idlib. They were forcibly displaced from their houses. They are now literally living under trees. Their highest dreams. I want everyone to imagine that with me, to be your highest dream, to have a tent, not a house, to have a tent to cover your children and protect your children from this cold winter. Their homelands were forcibly taken. They lack the basic life needs, and the NGOs are doing their best to cover this needs from of those people. For example, Rahma Worldwide has been working for more than 4 months unstoppably to cover those needs, and there are more needs. For example, hygiene baskets, food baskets for thousands of families were displaced, and there are still in need. The infrastructure in the areas are being targeted directly. Hospitals are being directed. Even NGOs teams are not safe inside Idlib. The civil defense teams that head right away where the bombing occurs, even they are targeting those civil defense and the ambulances.
So when you say they're targeting the civil defense and the ambulances and the aid workers, is that happening right now, or is it on pause after the talks that have been happening and the ceasefire that's been agreed? I know you said that the ceasefire hasn't affected the humanitarian situation, but how is it now around you in Idlib, in where you are now? And how would you describe the situation?
Well, the situation differs from area into another area. Some areas are quite calm, and some areas the bombing didn't stop. So we can't say it's 100% peaceful, but the bombing are less in a less way. But there is still bombing, and there are still a lot of people displaced. So the ceasefire didn't affect anything on the humanitarian situation. The crisis is still on. But just like I previously said, the bombing is less now, but we never know. This is the thing. This is the thing. We never know. We never see it coming. So we can't say right now it's 100% safe, not even 70% safe right now on the ground.
What's the situation with supplies? So is there a way for humanitarian aid to reach you guys inside Idlib, or is that still very difficult, or is there a complete blockade?
It's still available. A lot of NGOs are still working very hardly inside Idlib right now, because the needs are not only doubled, are tripled due to this heavy displacement or forcibly displaced people inside Idlib. We are talking about more than 1.7 internal displaced from big areas, just like Kaframbil and Sarakib and Ma'arat al-Nu'man and Khan Sheikhoun. And those are major cities. Ma'arat al-Nu'man and its countryside consist of more than 250,000 people. And all of those people are were forcibly displaced into the north of Idlib.
So
In addition to that, there are more in Idlib. In the whole Idlib, there are more than 3.5 million people.
And are they concentrated in the north towards the border, or are they more towards the south? I mean, how are they spread out in Idlib?
Well, you might not believe this, and the audience may not believe this, but they are literally living under olive trees. Houses
so
were
the
full.
housing situation. So with the housing situation, you're saying the NGOs are in the area, however, they can't cover the needs of the people because there are so many people displaced, people living under olive trees, like you said.
The NGOs are gathering their efforts together. They are working together to cover this need, but the need is enormous. And just like I previously said.
What's the situation with people trying to go across the border? So is there an option to go into Turkey, or is the border sealed off?
Border are closed. We are literally trapped inside Idlib province. No way out. The people are literally making the journey towards the unknown.
They're practically sitting. For lack of a better term, sitting ducks, essentially.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's basically everything is literally unknown for the people.
And if you have sort of one sort of message, I guess, to our listeners and to the people listening here in the UK and maybe further out, what would you say? What would you tell them? I mean, we can't imagine what it's like, obviously, living under constant fear for your life and whatnot. So if there's one message you could put out to people out there, as a Syrian, maybe not an NGO worker, but as a Syrian living in Idlib and having to survive, what would it be?
Yes. Well, as a human being at the first place, and as a Syrian man, and as a humanitarian worker, have been living inside Idlib. I believe that the whole world's community should take responsibility for the atrocities that are happening inside Idlib. The world community represented by the United Nations should take responsibility for millions of people. The whole people of the world should not only speak up. It has been 9 years. We are entering our 10th year. Should act for Idlib. Women are dying. Today is the Women's International Day, and women are literally dying. And even in the Child's Day, the children are dying. We are deprived from the basic human rights. We are deprived from the right of education. We are deprived from the right of being well fed. We are deprived from the least of the human rights. So my message, just like I previously said, as a human being in the first place, and a Syrian man and a humanitarian worker, the whole world community and the whole world people should and must and have to act for Idlib.
In terms of humanitarian work and Rahma Worldwide in particular, how can people donate to you guys?
Of course, we have a Facebook page and we have a website. Rahma Worldwide is not working only inside Syria. They are working in 6 countries across the world, basically helping those in need in the times of needs.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. I really appreciate your joining in, and inshallah we will obviously from our side we'll be making dua for you guys. Hopefully we'll be able to provide some humanitarian aid, and inshallah there'll be a political solution or a long-term fix for this situation coming your way. But all the Syrian people, and particularly the people trapped in Idlib right now, are in our prayers. Thank you very much, Noor, for joining.
Yeah, I just want to say it's incredibly powerful to be hearing from someone inside Idlib. I mean, we sit and we talk about it, but to actually hear from someone on the ground, it's a humbling experience. And we're sitting here in a nice, warm sort of office space doing our recording, and humanitarian workers such as yourself and the wider Syrian population in Idlib are, like you said, sitting under olive trees just to try and survive. So thanks for your time, thanks for speaking to us, and thanks for all that you're doing. And you're definitely in our prayers.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noor.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we just heard from Idlib. We're now joined by another guest called Kinda. She's actually a Syrian refugee herself. She's now left Syria and is outside of Syria. And she's speaking to us on behalf of a campaign called #WeAreTheLove. And we're, again, really appreciate your time for joining us, Kinda. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for having me on your show, Mustafa and Taqib. Thank you.
And Asad as well.
I'm still sitting in the back, quietly.
He's our warrior in the back. But anyway, so, I mean, Idlib, we heard the humanitarian situation is really, really serious. One of the things that they really require is humanitarian aid. But one of kind of, I guess, from our perspective, we wanted to, rather than just have a deeper analysis of the situation, we wanted to bring on someone who's doing something about it, especially something positive. And we came across your campaign as We Are the Love. So can you tell us a little bit about We Are the Love? What is it? And what are you guys doing on the ground?
What is We Are the Love? Why We Are the Love?
We Are the Love is a group of concerned friends from different countries who wants to relay a message of peace and love and hope. They came together when the violent attack against the innocent people inside Idlib, women, men, and children began in 2018. This little group has grown into a full-size campaign with young activists, with volunteers, with human rights interested people. So our team from different parts of Middle East, Europe, North America, include Syrians and non-Syrians alike. All of them are independent. This network, alhamdulillah, continues to grow every day across the world.
So did you guys start inside of Syria, or like is it a Syrian led group, or?
No. This is like some activists led by everyone. We are trying to work together to share the opinion, to share the ideas, to share the news between us to do something positive. We have three simple messages we try to deliver to the world.
So what are your messages? If I can
speak about the messages, the first one, the first messages is for the people in the whole world. We try to say that we, as a civilians, as a human rights activist, cannot let another Holocaust happen on our watch in 2020. So we need everyone who care to raise awareness and to push his local authorities to stop this suffering that caused by Bashar al-Assad and his allies. This the second message is for people inside Idlib. We try to give them some care. We try to say that you are not alone in this struggle. We, from all the world, trying to do our best to make sure that an end is put to this humanitarian disaster.
And
the third message is...
No, go ahead.
The third message is for international community. All of what you have done is not enough in Syria. You must put more and more pressure to stop this tragedy and to punish the criminal and stop this war crime.
When you speak about the We Are the Love campaign and the organization, do you work with any of the NGOs at the moment? Are you collaborating with anyone in particular?
Yes, we try to contact with many Syrians and not un-Syrians NGO inside Turkey, inside Syria, and the European. But the time was so limited, so we cannot have these opportunities to get many organizations on the border. But some of these organizations come with us. Yes.
How has the response been from mainly Western organizations? So the Amnesty, not the Amnesties, the British Red Cross or the International Red Cross, Committee of the Red Cross.
Really, the NGOs was its interest was weak, but the people on the ground, the activists, they contact us. When they hear about what we do, they called us to join with us, to support us. That was so good for us, encourage us to continue working and to continue speaking about these issues.
I mean, you've touched on you said you just ended with these issues. So to us out here sitting out, we're sitting in the UK, everything's pretty safe and sound. I mean, we can't imagine the issues that they are facing. We just heard from Nurin, who is inside Idlib, and he gave us a bit of an insight. But maybe from your side, what would you consider to be the main issues? What are the main challenges? What is the main ask that you, as We Are the Love, see as to be at the forefront?
I can speak a little about the situation today. For 3 hours ago, the Assad regime and the Russian and Iranian allies have launched a big attack against the civilian in Idlib, which is a small area, include 4 million children, women, and men. Al-Assad and his Russian allies has been directly targeting school, hospitals, the civil defense center, and other places. So in February alone, we have 20 hospitals, 30 schools, and 8 camps targeted. We lost more than 200 civilians, and 55 of them are children. So Idlib now is the last place for these people who dared to say no to Al-Assad dictatorians. It includes people from all Syrian areas, from Damascus, from Aleppo, from Homs, Daraya, Dar'a. All of them were displaced forcibly. So these attacks now cause displacement for more than 1.3 million people who has been moving to unknown, trying to find shelter, trying to find safe. So these people need support. These people, they didn't have any nowhere. They have nowhere to left to go. So we are trying to stop this disaster and bring the attention from whole world to what's happening there, and try to help them by pushing the media, by pushing the politician to do something real thing to stop that.
It's just to put it in a bit of a European context, actually, for our listeners as well, how millions and millions of people are being pushed and kettled into one area. Idlib, it's pretty. You can draw parallels to what happened in Bosnia and the Srebrenica genocide, where all the Muslim, the Muslim villages and the Muslim cities around, they were all sort of funneled and kettled into Srebrenica, and that's when sort of the Serbian army came in, and we have, it happened what happened, which was the Srebrenica genocide. And I think it's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kinda, but we are on probably a verge of another genocide happening in Idlib at a much larger scale. And you'd think that the international community would have sort of learnt its lesson and acted to prevent this. So I think when you've touched on how the government should act and how the media should act. As we are the love, or as a Syrian member of the campaign, what would you see as relevant action for governments to take? What would you like to see happen from Western governments, from Arab governments, from the wider international community?
We need to see a real interest. We need to see a real act. We need to see a real push to force al-Assad regime to go through the political process, not at the military process. We have Geneva. We have the many things, many decisions that cancelled or paused. We need to do what the whole world agreed to do in Syria as the solution for this problem. Not only to speak, not only to say that unacceptable and not doing anything. We need a real act from them.
So I guess in terms of, I know that Syria has been, on the international community, especially the West level, it's been a series of failures. And my understanding now is that Idlib is like the last point. What do you see as a future of Idlib? Do you think that this should become which is what I think Turkey is brokering for, is that we have a buffer zone in Idlib, which is kind of guaranteed by Turkey? Do you think that's the right solution for Turkish people? For Syrian people, is that's what we do? So everything that the regime and Putin have taken now, that stays in Syrian regime hands, and then we have a buffer zone there? Or how do you see kind of this playing out? Because my understanding is in other areas of Syria now, there isn't as much fighting anymore.
Our first priority today is to stop the bloodshed and to put end to this suffering. I don't imagine how can we do that. Maybe SF zone is a good solution, or maybe other solution will be better. But the important thing that we have millions of people, millions of civilians, millions of innocent are shelterless. They are living in open air. They need medical care. They need school. They need to feel safe. That's our priorities today. The world need to do something. When we get this, we will find, or we will think how to deal with the whole issues in Syria. But that is important. That's what we want the whole world to do.
That's I think that's a very, very good insight. I mean, what do you see after the conflict? I mean, after the humanitarian situation clears up, I mean, what happens next? There's been talk about Assad being tried for war crimes. People have spoken about bringing him in front of the International Criminal Court, or bringing the regime in front of the International Criminal Court, similar to what's happening now with Myanmar and how they've been brought in front of the International Criminal Court for genocide. I mean, is that something that as a Syrian you'd like to see? Some form of justice where Assad and his allies and the people who have propped him up are brought before the International Court to face some sort of justice?
Yes, that's our dream, but there's difference between dream and realities. Now we, as Assyrian, are hopeless. We didn't think that the international communities are serious to do some real thing. So now we are trying to help these people and then we will think with the next step.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, justice is so important, so important for us, because we have more than 1 million civilian killed, more than 500,000 civilian arrested, more than half of Syrian cities destroyed. This is a war crime. This is the criminal must be punished to get the real save.
I mean, this is the real conclusion you want. You want justice, and I think the whole Syrian revolution.
Yeah, I think it's important what you just said about the steps we should be taking. As in, the reason like Myanmar got taken to the ICJ was because a Muslim country, Gambia. It was the Gambia that took the application form and they filed it against Myanmar, because only states can take states to the ICJ, and that's the issue when you don't have a lot of support in the international community. So I think it should be taken a step-by-step process, because it only happened in Myanmar after the conflict had died down quite a bit.
And I think the only, and I think the way it happened in Bosnia and in Sarajevo is when NATO came in, and I'm not advocating for NATO, just to put that out there, but when the international community came in and took notice and finally decided to act. I think the Syrian conflict is coming up to 10 years now. I still remember being in college, sitting in the college common room, and having some girl exclaiming about, "Oh no, I'm having to cancel my holiday to Damascus."
I think it was like with Bosnia and with the NATO airstrikes, it was quite decisive, because when NATO got involved, the conflict ended quite quickly. But the Western powers have gotten involved in the Syrian wars, but it turns into a kind of battle of two sides, doesn't it? Instead of hoping to resolve a conflict.
I guess question, Kinda, just to kind of conclude from your side, what's the kind of final message from your side that you would send to our listeners who are predominantly based in the UK but also around the world, and what do you say to Muslims around the world listening and desperate to help but feeling a little bit helpless in terms of what we can do?
Yes, the last message I want to tell for the whole world and the Muslim communities that we are not depending on the government or the political solution, as we depend on the human at the people in the whole world who care about justice and supporting the innocents. We need them to act with us because they are more power and they can work without agendas and without benefit. That's not acceptable to watch million people on the television or to see the videos in the social media. Many of them are suffering and asking for help, and the government ignore them because it didn't care. We need to force these governments. We need to force these international communities to get a solution for that. To take his responsible, to do his duty, to stop that and save these people from death.
Thank you very much for that, Kinda. The We Are the Love campaign is at wearelove.org. So that's all one word. Jazakumullah khair for joining us. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And hopefully this campaign, and as well as so many of the other people who are trying to do good work out there, hopefully does lead to a kind of a quick, speedy, and end without much loss of life to the Syrian conflict, and also we're able to bring these criminals to justice. So thank you very much, Kinda, for your time.
Definitely, thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I mean, I'm just scrolling through the Twitter feed for We Are the Love, and I can see that you've done quite a number of things. You did something on New Year's Eve. You did something last June, and it seems to be sort of a global campaign with sort of localized activists all over the world. So I think a call to action to our listeners and to everyone listening is that, contact the We Are the Love campaign on Twitter, reach out to them and give them that support and aid that they need, and hopefully through grassroots campaigning and through our networks we can exert some sort of effect. I think the cliche saying of be the change you want to see in the world, and I think it's definitely up to us to act to try and save the millions of people trapped in Idlib. I think it's been a very surreal episode. We've barely spoken.
All right, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much, Kinda.
Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you, Saqib. Thank you, Asad, for allowing us to speak in your show. I appreciate that, and all Syrians appreciate of everyone who care about their issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. All right, so we've had 2 callers on. I'd like to apologize to our listeners for the sound quality. It's not been as optimal as we tried to make it, but with connection difficulties, especially dialing in people from abroad, it's a little bit difficult. I think, as Mustafa said, it's been a very surreal episode. We're a bit quieter than we are because obviously it reflects the severity of the situation. My personal take back from all that is that we are a little bit helpless in what we can do, but we do what we can. And one of those things is join a campaign on social media to raise awareness and to try to bring some sort of humanize the people in Idlib on the ground, try and connect with them and think about rebuilding in the future. And of course the humanitarian aid aspect, which I dare say that people have been hearing about for some time, and that need is there just as potently as it has been for the past number of years. But with that, Jazakumullah khair for listening to another episode of the Middle West podcast. This has been a special where we try to raise awareness of the Idlib issue and do kind of our little bit to promote it, and hopefully everyone can carry that on, and you can start with following hashtag We Are the Love or ORG. You can follow us on at the Middle West podcast
on Instagram, on the Middle West PC, on Twitter, and we've got a new website as well.
Websites in the works.
So we'll have a new website releasing, the Middle West.
The email has changed. The email has changed.
Yeah, podcast at themiddlewest.co.uk. And hopefully we'll see you with one of our regular episodes very soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.